Welcome to another of our Easter reflections as we get ready for Good Friday and then Easter Sunday. We've got 5 videos plus our Sunday services to focus our minds on the hope that the death and the resurrection of Jesus brings to the world. And again, if you're tuning in and you want to sort of keep up, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel for those daily video alerts. And also, if you want to, now that we can meet in person, you can sign up for a church service via our website. We'd love to be able to welcome you. So today, we're going to be thinking about a prayer of Jesus from the cross and the message of hope beyond guilt that it offers. We're going to recognise, I think, as we consider our world, the loss of certain moral categories, ideas of sin and guilt and judgment in particular, are largely rejected and disliked. In our drive as a modern society towards absolute freedom and freedom of self-expression, there is an implicit or explicit warning. No one can tell me what to do. It's my life. I make up the rules, my rights. And by that way of thinking, any idea of God as moral lawgiver is almost inevitably regarded negatively. God's stand as cosmic killjoy who wants to limit freedom. Of course, the Christian message is that God is our creator, and those limits that he places are necessary limits to allow life to flourish. But nevertheless, God as lawgiver largely rejected. Yet interestingly, and I think we can see this, notions of moralism and passing judgment are still very much in evidence. Most especially, I think, in cancel culture or call-out culture, however we term it. What do we see in cancel culture? We see public shaming and disgrace. We see an outcry that someone should lose their job, lose their position, lose their honour. If there is one tweet, one opinion voiced that is deemed unacceptable by the moral majority, that can spell the end for a person in the public realm. We see trial by social media in the court of public opinion. And what does that reveal to us? It reveals that ideas of judgment are still retained. It's impossible to live without them. We still ascribe guilt to people. But now, it's human standards rather than God's standards. And also we are often as a society lacking in biblical responses, the biblical antidote, ideas of mercy and grace and repentance and forgiveness that always come alongside the reality of judgment in the Bible have in many cases been forgotten. And it's into that setting where Jesus stands for us as a striking and a hope-filled contrast. If anyone had the right to protest, if anyone had the right to demand groups be cancelled or condemned, it was Jesus, the sinless Son of God. But instead, let me read to you this prayer from the cross. Luke chapter 23 at verse 32. 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, they crucified him there along with the criminals, one on his right, the other on his left. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they divided up his clothes by casting lots. The people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him. They said, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he is God's Messiah, the chosen one." What's Jesus' experience? He is treated as a common criminal. The Roman soldiers crucified him, guided by duty, but blind to the glory and the identity of Jesus. He would experience an agonizing death, physically and emotionally. He was dehumanized as they divided up his clothes, even as he hung dying. He was disrespected, mocked as being weak, imagining that he was abandoned by God for making false claims about himself. And Jesus' response in that suffering, facing that level of hostility, he he prays, Father, forgive them. This is Jesus who taught his followers that they were not to hate their enemies, but to love them. And indeed, they were to pray for those who persecuted them. Not merely to not retaliate, but positively to seek the best for their enemies. This is Jesus who taught the famous parable of the Good Samaritan, reminding us that loving our neighbour includes being ready to love our enemies. So Jesus taught that through his life, and now he practices what he preaches, praying, seeking forgiveness for those who had nailed him to the cross. Jesus, in response to real guilt and injustice against him, seeks the highest good of his enemies, which is forgiveness of their sin. Here is love, the love of the Son of God, poured out that those hostile men might become friends of God. It was Martin Luther King who said, love is the only force capable of turning an enemy into a friend. And it's only the love of God, the love of Jesus, the Son of God, exercised at the cross, that can turn us into friends of God and give us hope beyond guilt. Jesus, who could have saved himself, chose to suffer and die, doing that so that guilty, sinful rebels who trust in him might live. This is why Jesus came, to offer hope beyond our guilt, to offer mercy and forgiveness in the face of evil. And if you tune in tomorrow, we'll see the impact that this prayer, among other things, had on one of those men dying with him